everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. It is election night in America. 6 states from coast to coast are holding high-stakes primaries for governor, for mayor, and for Congress. All eyes are on the most populous state in the union, California, where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1, maintaining a single-party grip on state government for years. But tonight there's a chance deep blue California turns a tinge of purple. When the polls close in 4 hours, we will know if reality TV star turned Trump-backed candidate Spencer Pratt leads the second largest city in America, or at least advances to a runoff to lead it. Pratt has gained viral traction through sharp AI-produced videos and brutally blunt talk about homelessness and crime.
They're not homeless, they're drug addicts. Most of these people are addicted to fentanyl and meth. This isn't Spencer making it up.
Are you saying they don't have homes?
There is places for all of these people to sleep in LA. No matter what anybody tells you, we have housing and shelter for everyone that's living on the street. They're choosing to be on the street because they want to do drugs, they don't want rules.
Now compare that messaging to that of the incumbent Democratic Mayor Karen Bass.
How many people who are unhoused that you meet have no teeth at all? They don't have teeth. Why? Because meth rots your teeth. You can't succeed without teeth. So there needs to be comprehensive health care provided to people.
To be clear, Karen Bass is suggesting comprehensive health care for homeless meth addicts. What she is not suggesting is mandatory rehab. Similar dynamics are at play in the California governor's race, where by the end of the night, we could also know if a Republican has a real chance to succeed Gavin Newsom. The top 2 winners of the primary, no matter what party they belong to, will advance to the general election in November. And Steve Hilton, the Trump-backed former Fox News host, who is now polling in the top 3, told me deep blue California needs a reset.
There's 3 of us in contention for the top 2 spots, myself and 2 other Democrats. There is a real possibility we have 2 Democrats in the general election, and that completely removes the chance for Californians, a majority who want change, to actually vote for it.
Now, don't worry, the drama isn't just in California tonight. Polls are already closing in Iowa, where a highly competitive race for an open Senate seat is playing out. If Democrats want to win back the Senate in November, that is where the road begins. And by the way, if Democrats do win control of Congress, that likely means 2 years of investigations into President Trump. But it's an uphill battle. Iowa hasn't elected a Democrat for Senate since 2008, when Barack Obama was the face of the party. And 2 very different types of Democrats are fighting to break that dry spell. On one side, a gold medal-winning Paralympian who's twice won a state seat in a Trump-leaning district. And on the other is a state senator who's running an anti-establishment, anti-Chuck Schumer campaign. It's a lot on the line for a lot of people. Let's kick things off in California with NewsNation's Brooke Schaefer, live for us at a polling site. Brooke, is it crowded? What's the mood there? How's the energy? How's the turnout?
Well, Elizabeth, we were talking with a lot of voters outside of this polling location here in Los Angeles who really seemed apathetic to the options in front of them. We talked to some people who said they were kind of waiting this out, trying to see how all of this would shake out before they ultimately made their decision today. When we talk about the governor's race, it is a crowded field, to say the least, and that has been some of the concern for Democrats in this race, that there are so many candidates that they will end up splitting the vote for Democrats and ultimately giving Republicans an opportunity. The field in that race will narrow down to 2 tonight. Democrats are feeling confident they'll get at least 1 of those spots. So in a lot of ways, people are saying this has really become a race for second tonight. Then you also have the LA mayor's race. That has gained a lot of national attention and has really become the race to watch tonight, mostly because you have Spencer Pratt, a reality TV star who's become a real contender in this race. You laid out some of his arguments throughout his campaign. He has really set himself up as somebody who understands the local frustration and anger over the current administration, the current mayor, Karen Bass, who's running for re-election. There are voters who we've talked to today. They are frustrated with her office's response to homelessness in Los Angeles and the response to the Palisades fire. Here's what voters told us today.
I voted for Mayor Bass. That one, I don't really feel like any of the candidates really speak for what I'm looking for, but I guess to me it was kind of the devil you know is better than the one you don't.
I had to vote for Spencer Pratt. I just couldn't in good conscience vote for someone who had a hand in burning down our community. I lost my house, my business, my kids lost their schools. It's been devastating. And I just love what Spencer has for a mission.
Now, the LA mayor's race is not partisan, but the fact that Spencer Pratt, a registered Republican, has been able to see these gains in a deeply blue city like Los Angeles speaks to the frustration and the anger that some of these voters are feeling. Many are looking at this as a message for Democrats tonight. Elizabeth?
All right, Brooke Schaefer, where all the action is. Thank you so much. We have a very all-star stacked political panel tonight. Katie Pavlich is the host of NewsNation's Katie Pavlich Tonight. Chris Starwald is NewsNation's political editor and host of The Hill Sunday. And Chris Cillizza is a NewsNation political contributor and the author of the So What newsletter on Substack. Great to have all of you here. All right. I'm going to go with Starwalt because we have two Chris's on the panel, so you guys are going by last names tonight. Chris Starwalt, the Republicans in the races for mayor of LA and governor of California have generated so many headlines, so much attention. Both are taking on issues that plague California, affordability, the homeless crisis. What are the chances they both win enough votes to go on to the November election?
Well, it's a weird situation in California, but I guess we could say that frequently. But it is a weird situation in California because it's a top two system. As you said, the top two, regardless of party, go through.
Right.
So if you're Javier Becerra, you want Steve Hilton to be in the final pairing because you don't want to have to deal with Tom Steyer, because Tom Steyer has spent a truly shocking amount of his massive fortune to try to get into this thing.
More than $200 million.
I really wish that billionaires who wanted to just burn money in politics would just give it to me. I'm here.
Me too.
Drop it off, and it'll get you about as close to elected governor of California as just doing a fire hose will in California. But if you're Javier Becerra, who is a very weak front runner in this crowded field, you want Hilton because you need that partisan registration advantage. Same is true for Spencer Pratt with Karen Bass. She wants him now. There's a Trump problem here, which is be careful what you wish for, because given the weakness of the front runners or the incumbent in the case of Bass, you know, weird things can happen in a general election, even in a 2-to-1 state.
Yeah, Katie, to say Karen Bass is weak as an incumbent is almost an understatement. There's nothing more stark than the juxtaposition of Bass and Spencer Pratt on the homeless crisis. Pratt says, get those drug-addicted people off the streets and into treatment. Bass, in essence, is saying, get them to a dentist.
Well, and also he's basically the change candidate here. He's saying that you want accountability for what happened in the Palisades fires. You want accountability for billions of your tax dollars going to the homelessness industrial complex and making it worse over the years. You know, we've tried Democratic monopolies for many years, over a decade, and this is the result. Is that what you want more of? And a lot of people, including Democrats, by the way, are saying, no, I want something to change. And oftentimes in politics, you know, people are willing to have the same political party in power for a long time based on partisan reasons, or as Chris noted, just registration numbers. But there are these big events that do happen in politics. The Palisades fire in this situation is one of those, because it's not just about the fire and the people who lost their homes. It's about the incompetence and the failure to act ahead of time to prevent that from occurring, and the basics of governance as a mayor. The fact that you have reservoirs that are not working, the fact that you don't have the streets that are cleaned up, the fact that you're paying all this money in California, and yet you can't rebuild your home after they were burned down. And you had Karen Bass promise with President Trump, by the way, when he went to visit, that they would streamline the permitting process so people could start over. That's not happening. Then there's, of course, the affordability issue, which in California is exclusive to that state. Prices are up all over the country in a lot of cases, but in California especially, it's extra expensive to live there. It's the #1 state where people are leaving, not moving into. So those are all problems that Spencer Pratt is just simply pointing out as facts, and Karen Bass is having a hard time saying that they're not issues at all.
Chris Cillizza, can Spencer Pratt actually do the job as mayor? I've seen people interviewed who are saying, I love what he's saying, but I don't have any evidence that he can do anything about it. We had Karen, what do you think?
No, it's a really good question. But I would say that most people at this point, lots and lots of voters, really don't want the same old resume. I mean, Donald Trump taught us this lesson in 2016. On resume alone, you would have bet Hillary Clinton would have won because she was the one who had the kind of resume that usually the United States elects. I think his outsiderness is what's appealing to him. Can he do the job? Some people, maybe many people would argue Karen Bass isn't really doing the job. I mean, I think that there's a mixed sort of history of that. I remember Jesse Ventura from my youth. I remembered him as a wrestler. He gets elected. He gets elected as the governor of Minnesota, and many people remember that in 1998, beating two establishment figures in that race. But he didn't do a very good job. He was kind of all over the place. He didn't really he didn't pick the kind of people who might do a good job. Could Spencer Pratt? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think that theory is going to get tested, though Chris Steyerwalt is right. There's no question Karen Bass wants Spencer Pratt to finish second to her tonight, not Nithya Raman, the sort of lefty Bernie Sanders AOC figure, because Karen Bass thinks Spencer Pratt's easier to beat in a general election, Democrat versus Republican. That's probably true. But you know who else sort of wanted their opponent, got what they wanted, it didn't work out? Hillary Clinton, 2016 against Donald Trump. So you just never know.
You never know. And Starwalt, Karen Bass is already trying out her campaign line. Should it be Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass who advance after tonight? She said today, we're not going to be distracted by a TV reality show villain dismissing his thin resume. But then take a look at this headline in Politico. The biggest threat to J.D. Vance is Spencer Pratt. What?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you got to write something. I don't know. I guess you got to write something.
People want outsiders, but that's getting a little crazy.
Look, what every Democrat in California can bank on this year is the climate, right? This is what they believe. There's a different story. If we think back to how Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor of California, there was a recall of a sitting Democrat, and he got through, right? It was a weird moment. There were a pornographic actress running. It was all kinds of crazy stuff. And Schwarzenegger sounded reasonable, and it was a different kind of election. This is a huge turnout election if you, compared to those. If you look at how the proposition to gerrymander California did, the Gavin Newsom measure, the Democratic numbers were astonishing. And if you're Karen Bass and if you're Javier Becerra, what you're betting is that in a heavily Democratic state, at a moment where the president is so unpopular and people are so angry at the Republican Party across the country, particularly in California, that you're just going to ride it out. And all you need is just an R next to your opponent's name, and it'll be enough.
You know, Katie, it does beg the question, though, if people are that angry and California is that blue, why haven't the Democrats managed to find anybody competent? And I mean, literally, the gubernatorial slate is so lackluster that, you know, people repeatedly have said, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. You know, Karen Bass has, you know, no matter what, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, is plagued by, you know, all sorts of, you know, the homelessness crisis has gotten worse, the affordability crisis has gotten worse. It's amazing that they haven't come up with somebody better to run in any of these races.
Well, first of all, a lot of the Republicans have moved out of town, out of the state. You have a lot of the good Democrats who have, quite frankly, left the state to better tax havens like Texas and Florida. And they just get complacent. When you have decades of Democratic rule, it's easy not to hold your own party accountable. I find it very interesting that you have Bass and the councilwoman, Raman, who is further left than she is. And they're both very, very progressive and left. It's not like Karen Bass is some kind of blue dog Democratic type. She is far left in terms of her politics. And then you have Spencer Pratt, who's coming in and at least trying to show honestly what they're facing, what these problems are, and hey, What do you have to lose? All of these things are occurring. You're paying for it. Why not try something else and put the Republican label aside if you're willing to not vote blue no matter who?
All right, Saliza, let's expand our view here, because Democrats want to take control of the Senate, and in order to do so, they have to defeat an incumbent Republican senator, namely Susan Collins in Maine. That election is not until a week from today, but the only Democrat actively in that race right now is this oyster farmer, Graham Plattner, who was in Washington, D.C. today, meeting with Democratic leadership and trying to reassure them that his drip, drip, drip of embarrassing or offensive or allegedly anti-Semitic tattoos, that's all done. We shall see. But it was a very interesting moment with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who was asked point blank if he supports Plattner. Listen to what he said.
I met with Graham Plattner today. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate. Any other subject you got? Any other subject? Yes. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate. Last one. I endorsed Graham Plattner. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate.
Okay, we edited out all the questions. But in between every question was, do you support Graham Plattner?
Yeah.
And he over and over refused to say he did.
And remember, I mean, the history here, right, for people who are unfamiliar, Chuck Schumer actively recruited Janet Mills, the sitting two-term Democratic governor, into this race. He thought she would be the better candidate. She dropped out of the race a month and a half ago because, candidly, she was going to lose in next week's primary by 30 points against Graham Plattner. I will say, Graham Plattner may well beat Susan Collins. He's probably ahead today, but he represents a massive risk for Democrats. There's already been a bunch. Nazi-aligned tattoo, Reddit posts about rape, white rural people, black people, the sexting scandal
fellow veterans that he's maligned. Yeah.
Sexting between 6 and 12 women, allegedly, who are not his wife after less than 2 years of marriage. My experience in covering politics is usually it's not just like, oh, that one thing and then nothing else ever comes out. It's a gigantic risk. I will note Janet Mills, the governor, noted earlier this week
she's
that
still on the ballot. Yeah.
She suspended her campaign, but she is still on the ballot, basically meaning, hey, if Graham Plattner implodes between now and next Tuesday, here I am over here still as an option. So, you know, it's just a gigantic risk. Doesn't mean he can't win, but I don't think this is the last time we're going to be talking about things Graham Plattner's either said or done that may not sit well with the folks of Maine.
Yikes. All right. Buckle in, everybody. It's election season. Katie Pavlich, Chris Starwell, Chris Saliza, thank you all three for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Coming up for us, Secretary of State Marco Rubio testified this afternoon on Capitol Hill for the first time since the Iran war began. Did his answers provide any clear signals on how it's going and when it's going to end? And then later, the embattled sheriff leading the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie gives a rare interview saying the case is far from cold, but 4 months later, are we any closer to finding out what happened? I'll speak with two experts who have their own theories on this mysterious case. We are about 30 seconds away from 8 o'clock, the top of the hour. Chris Cuomo joins me now. I know it's election night. I don't think we're going to get any results. Maybe Iowa. No, not even Iowa. Definitely not California.
No. But, you know, it's primaries also, so I think there's a high indicia of predictability to this. I have one personal insight and one real surprise for you. Here's the personal insight.
Okay.
You know, I love to fish, right? Mm-hmm. And I know some people are like, how could you do that? How could you hurt an animal? You don't, whatever. I fish. I love it. It's a great pastime. But I catch and release.
Okay.
Look, you see my hand?
What
this
happened?
is from reaching into the mouth of a striped bass to get the hook out so that we could release it.
So
and
somebody was hurt during your fishing expedition. It wasn't the fish.
So this is how hard we try to make sure that we put him back. Now, and here's the shocker. The president said something that is a staggering truth about what MAGA is really about. And it's really been drifting, it's just been drifting without comment until the top of my show.
Okay. Well, everybody should watch and hear what that staggering thing was that came from
Staggering.
the president. Staggering.
Elizabeth, I'll
Have a
talk
good
to you
show.
tomorrow. Chris Cuomo here. Yes, a staggering truth straight from President Trump about what MAGA really means to him. Quote, in the last 2 weeks, I've taken out many bad political leaders and pundits, including Senator Bill Cassidy and really dumb Stephen Colbert. My score is 38-0 with 3 more limping late-night hosts, including Bill Maher to go. It is my honor to be working so hard for our country. Unquote. No one else wrote this. Not AI. No other context is hidden. This is the truth. MAGA is not about populism, or really even policy. It is about settling scores. Working so hard for this country. Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. Working so hard for this country, in quotes, means getting rid of Colbert, Kimmel, Maher, other media. It is to Trump. But probably not to the 9 million people who voted for President Obama and then took a chance on Trump because they were so desperate for change in 2016. This explains what is driving this spreading disappointment in our country, the outrage. It's not just the policies he's pushed, the tariffs, tax cuts for big business but not small business, unforeseen foreign wars that have created great price pressure. All of these things are making it harder at home, and you know this. But it is that the president's main focus is serving his own desire for vengeance and fealty, not your desperation for change among the meat and potatoes Americans who really do need help. The hypocrisy of getting you to vote for him to end lawfare and drain the swamp, which is a metaphor for what? Corruption, only to do the opposite. Making the policy, the party, rather, nothing more than his fan club. This is what MAGA is apparently to the president. Every time he takes out a Republican incumbent who votes with him 90+% of the time, but deigns to speak truth to power once in a while, ask yourself, is this about what pleases him or me? How does this help gas prices? How is this going to make my grocery bills more affordable? After we just had the highest grocery inflation rate since August 2023. Instead of targeting the woman that a jury said was assaulted by him, instead of trying to get a lifetime pass to cheat on taxes and spending your money to reward January 6 felons, why isn't he going after credit card interest rates or the healthcare pigs, both of which he promised? He said it to you, just like he said this. Going to cap them at 10%. Remember that? I'm going to call them all in, all the healthcare pigs. I'm going to sit them down, and they're going to listen to me. And I'm going to say, listen, you're making too much money. We're going to change this with you or without you. What happened? You just did nothing. Instead, he focused on settling stupid scores. Now, I'm not saying that the president can't be effective. He can be. In primary elections, Trump is batting 1,000. He's 118-0, okay? But the key word there is primary. The question is, what's going to happen when he needs to get any votes beyond his ride-or-die base? You really think Ken Paxton is more appealing to more Texans than John Cornyn? If you say, yeah, I do, then tell me, Why do you think candidates that the president backed in the competitive statewide elections lost their races in Wisconsin, Virginia, and New Jersey? Maybe you at home voted for Trump because you saw him as a disruptor. But the disruption you wanted was for him to change things so that they'd be better for you, not just for his ego, right? The legitimate concerns. I keep saying the people who voted for Trump, they weren't wrong about what is wrong. They were wrong about who and what would make it right. These are legitimate concerns, and the president took advantage of them. And they're still there. In fact, they're there more than ever. The same feelings of disaffection, desperation, wanting disruption, desperate for change are felt by more deeply, and in more places, and by more different kinds of faces than anything we saw in any of Trump's elections to date. And they're not going to vote for somebody to do what's good just for the candidate. The signs of a reckoning are becoming apparent. Stay tuned. Now, we're on primary watch tonight. Will the president add 2 more to his scorecard? Likely. In the race for L.A. mayor, the Trump-backed former reality TV star turned populist politician, no experience ever running anything like a government, let alone one the size of Los Angeles. Spencer Pratt, neck and neck with Democrat incumbent Karen Bass and Democratic Socialist Council member Nithya Raman. Now, it's not a primary, but we'll see how he does. This guy got a lot closer than people expected. Now, is that because of Trump's endorsement? It's hard to say that, especially in L.A. I think it's really about discontent with Bass after the fires and a lot of other things about the state of play there. And Nithya Raman making a really good insurgent move, taking a big part of what would have been Bass's base. So you also have the California governor's race. True jungle primary. 61 names on the ballot. By the way, I love it. I'll take it better than the two-party any day. Anyway, the top 2 candidates advance to the November election. Look, I think ranked choice is a lot better than jungle, but whatever. The Trump-endorsed candidate, former Fox News host Steve Hilton, is neck and neck with Democratic billionaire Tom Steyer and Biden's former HHS secretary Javier Becerra. So let's discuss the state of play with the Democratic mega donor and just the man, okay, the man behind the biggest law firm known, John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. You've seen him on the billboards. And former Republican New Hampshire Governor, Mr. Chris Sununu, who has a dashing haircut tonight. Dashing. I start with you, Brother Sununu. My analysis of the MAGA proposition, agree or counter, and why?
No, you're 100% right. It's primaries. I mean, you brought that up. I mean, in a primary, the base comes out strong when the president gets behind someone. Does it affect things in the general? It has very little effect in the general election. If anything, I mean, the only way it's a positive net effect in the general when Trump backs someone is if independents are generally going to swing more conservative, which probably isn't the case, come November. So, yeah, right now I think it's a matter of Trump is, what's his number one characteristic? Loyalty. He wants everyone to be loyal to him, and those that show that loyalty, he returns it. So whether it's Paxton or others, that's really what goes into his calculus at the end of the day. So, yeah, he does great in the primaries, as a lot of incumbent presidents do, but at the general election, it is a different story, and it's not about just one person or the national endorsement. It really comes down to swinging those independent voters, and that really doesn't have to do with endorsements. That has to do with the ground game and getting the vote out. And remember, it's not about the polls. Who cares what the polls say? It's who actually comes out and votes. Right? Who gets the vote out? That's the real dynamic, especially in off-year elections.
Every line item that every campaign dreads, GOTV, the get out the vote effort, and how much money it is. And that's when you start calling John Morgan. One point of pushback that I'll deliver to Mr. Morgan, which is, I agree with you, but I don't think it's loyalty. Loyalty is what you and I have, what John and I have, a relationship over time. If you need me, I'm there. Every time I've needed you, you've been there for me. Same thing with John Morgan. That's loyalty. What the president demands is fealty. That's the difference. You do what's right by him or you pay. Not loyalty, fealty. Okay? He should have been a mobster, not a politician. But John Morgan, you have been coaching me up and saying, don't confuse MAGA with the mood of the country, that there is plenty of outrage to go around, that things are getting worse, the troubles are getting deeper. The question is, how do you message to it, and what kind of messenger do you need? Do you see the state of play right now as an opportunity for insurgents/Democrats?
I do. Here's what I believe. For the first time in a long time, the Democrats actually have a deep bench. The Republicans usually have the deep bench. One of them's right here on this show. But there's a lot of great candidates, and MAGA is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as you see his favorabilities going further and further and further down. And so I do believe there is movement for that. But look, one thing we can't ever forget, when he ran on one word, and he said it over and over again, retribution. He made no mistake about what he was going to do. And as politicians say, elections have consequences. This is not a surprise. He told us what he was going to do. And as Angela Mayo says, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yes, but I don't think people voted for him thinking it was going to look and feel like this, Chris. They thought he was a macho conservative, that he would go and talk trash to Democrats and beat them at their own game, and he's got the money and he's got the access and he's tough and he's angry at them, he's got the same enemies, but that he was then going to make it all better for them. And that piece has been sorely lacking.
Well, sort of. So let's start with what has fundamentally changed, and a lot for just, and I don't like the term MAGA base, but just Republicans and conservatives in general. This wokeism stuff is finally leaving the building. And that was huge across the country, not just for Republicans, for independents, and even a lot of Democrats. They were sick and tired of the cancel culture and all that, and he's really tried to flush that out. I think where you're spot on is maybe on the international side of things. He was going to get us out of things. Obviously, Iran is going longer than anticipated. That's a new one for us. That's a pretty tough situation, and now they're kind of scrambling to get out as hard as you can. And that's probably one of the larger issues, and its subsequent drive on gas prices and jet fuel prices and all that sort of thing, that I think the Republican base as a whole, is pretty frustrated with. Also, to be honest, there was a whole movement. Let's not forget, a year ago we were talking about Doge. And Doge, and I get Doge had the right approach, the right idea, terrible methods and methodology and messaging. But the whole idea was to get government under control, right? To rein in the bureaucracy and to get spending under control, because it ain't their money, it's our money. And that, again, has fallen apart. I don't know if I'd blame him for that, but that is also where the administration, I would love to see them kind of refocus there. But at the end of the day, I keep going back out to only general elections matter, right? We're hyped up on the primaries. I think California will be a very interesting bellwether. I think the Republican running for mayor in L.A. and I see Steve Hilton, they're both going to do pretty well tonight. Yeah, Platt. Sorry, I was thinking the senator up in Maine, right? The Democrat senators, which again, to counter John Morgan's point, we both have our extremes here, right? We both have real extremes out there. If you want to, you can complain about Paxton all you want.
Except
but the
outrage,
the Senate candidate.
The outrage isn't on your side though, because you're in power. You're in power. Graham Platt is going to get a forgiveness that Trump got because he's an outsider. So they're not matching him up that way. I just think that the item on the table is, for the midterms, is did he deliver for you and how? For example, if he had done what he said with the credit card companies, with the healthcare bigs, he'd have a different argument. John Morgan, okay, now, you know, he's suing you. He's looking for a money recovery. He has taken on the social media companies for what they have done to us a little bit, but to the younger generation and to our kids, which they knew their social media products would do, and they said nothing. So he's taken them on. And he's trying to build the biggest class that he can. And I want to help him, and a lot of people are helping him do it because it is a righteous move. That's what they expected from Trump, John Morgan. I'm glad you're doing it. But that's what the retribution was supposed to be, no?
Well, the retribution, look, Governor Sununu, and by the way, I wore a tie tonight because I knew I was going to be on with him. I'm a part-time resident of New Hampshire.
No, he's casual now. He's out right now. When he gets back in and he asks me to leave my job to work for his campaign, he'll have a tie on when he asks me. I guarantee you that.
Come up and see me at Lake Winnisquam, Governor. That new hotel's unbelievable. But listen, he got elected with the governor said, woke, DEI, transgender swimmers, the border, and then the cherry on top was Kamala Harris. I mean, it was all that. And if you don't believe it, and I said it a long time ago, this is a race war. This is a race war that we've got going on here. You see with all the different congressional districts being switched and the black representatives being wiped out, this is a race war that nobody wants to say, but that's what's going on.
John Morgan, I love you.
If I may, it's a race war.
I'll give you a button.
It's a race war where Trump is getting more African-American votes than any other Republican president. That's a hard one. It's not a race war. It's not whites versus blacks.
No, it's all cumulative. There's slivers that add it all up. That, listen, these algorithms of things you get are just unbelievable that fuel the fire. The MAGA fire.
The division. The division is on every level.
When I say race war, Governor, reverse discrimination. That's what MAGA was all about. Reverse discrimination. You know, why should I not get into college if I have a better SAT score? That's what it was about.
I'm heading up to Lake Winnisquam. We'll have a whiskey and chat this one out.
Have you been to that new hotel?
Don't forget your boy.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Don't forget your boy when you get together.
I'll
bring the booze. I'm not drinking, but I love to pour. Gentlemen,
we leave New Yorkers at the border. Sorry, Cuomo.
Oh, man. I'll talk to you both soon. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up, is the bromance between Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu over? I hope so. And I'll tell you why. I've been very open with you guys about how I feel about Israel's right to exist. But Bibi Netanyahu was the wrong guy for the wrong moment, except to fight and to be a warrior. Okay? Remember how much trouble he was in. Bibi Netanyahu is helped by everything that's happening in the Middle East right now because it's keeping him in power because he's defending his people. It's not the same interests as Trump. So let's test this idea that it was only a matter of time before Trump, to save his own ass, was going to have to say, Bibi, I got to stop carrying you on this. We don't have the same interests. Two people who know the politics and the players. Next. Dr. Pat, my boss is watching, and he said, hey, let Dr. Pat answer this question. He matters. So what should people know about the fight to get Anktiva for more people who are dealing with severe cancers?
So let's talk about the bladder cancer, the BCG unresponsive bladder cancer, for which it's approved for cysts plus or minus papillary. The good news is they had a workshop, the FDA had a workshop to find out from the thought leaders, is cysts and papillary the same disease in terms of how they treat it? And the outcome of that workshop is the doctors all said that's how they treat it. If they see papillary disease, they move on as if it was papillary plus cysts. And the data is now sitting in the hands of the FDA, our filing. There's now new leadership in the FDA. And I can only remain hopeful of them now reviewing the data and together with that workshop. The other thing that we have talking to the FDA about is a 14-year BCG shortage. We think we've resolved that. There is a strain that they've completed a randomized trial, and we'll be talking to the FDA about that. With regard to the other cancers, Chris, you know exactly how people are still desperately calling, and I'm working as hard as I can to get there.
Well, Dr. Pat, I've never seen anything like it. And I appreciate knowing you, and I appreciate getting to chronicle this journey, and I will stay on it. Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, thank you for how you're helping with Ebola and, of course, with cancer. We're here for it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll do it again. Leland Vittert, right now. Thank you for the time, brother.
And to you, Chris, nobody stays on a story, and I say this sincerely to you, like you do, whether it's the pregnant missing girl in Chicago, and I thought was a fascinating conversation, also this as well. It is the top of the hour, a little bit past now, 9:01 Eastern. Polls closing across the country. Primary night in America. The night of nights, where political careers will be made or lost. You can see live pictures of Los Angeles there, Spencer Pratt's headquarters. He's running for mayor of Los Angeles. He is a former reality TV star and might just pull off the biggest political upset since Trump in 2016. Polls are now closed in Iowa, New Jersey, South Dakota, Montana, and New Mexico. Key races being called all across the country in a moment. Mark Halperin, Kevin Walling, Larry O'Connor on the possibility of Iowa turning blue, and I can't believe I'm saying this, California turning red. Also ahead, Mike Nellis on Dr. Jill Biden's doctorate in revisionist history and whether the Democrats can ever move on from the mess the Bidens caused, plus Mark Caputo on his bombshell reporting on President Trump's cursed-filled phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Why everything you may have heard about Israel and the United States just got flipped on its head. First, though, our Why It Matters segment tonight. And tonight we learn whether the political landscape is actually changing or if it's just something on Twitter. Think of all the things we've been told are now possible in 2026. We've been told a Democrat will win Texas. A Republican reality TV star can become Los Angeles mayor. A Democrat will win Iowa's governor's race and possibly the Senate race. A terrorist-connected doctor will become a congressman in New Jersey. No matter what happens, each party and pundits could learn a lot from the fact that we're even talking about this, but most will not. Democratic elites have zero interest in changing course because LA is a hellhole, and folks there are so fed up with drug zombies they might elect a Republican who was once a reality TV star. Democrats think this looks like success. Republican elites have zero interest in honest self-reflection to understand why James Tallarico, a guy who believes there are 6 genders and running a vegan campaign, is ahead in Texas. We all are stuck in the middle. You watch the show because you believe in right versus wrong, not left versus right. There is Iowa, where we have to wonder why Rob Sand might actually win the governor's race. The Guardian asks, can a pro-hunting Democrat lead a blue wave in Iowa? I've spent time with Rob Sand in Iowa. He is a generational political talent. Tonight will tell us if electability matters to the Democratic Party because of who Team Blue picks in Iowa. If they want to pick up a Senate seat, they need to nominate Josh Turek. He is a 2-time gold medalist in the Paralympics and has a background story about his life for the ages. He will likely face off with Trump-backed Congresswoman Ashley Hinson. Politico reports that Hinson admitted the political risk of the Iran war at a campaign event. She says it has become a political liability, or will be if it extends much longer. Los Angeles, though, is the place of dreams. And nothing would say more about a backlash to woke than Spencer Pratt winning the LA mayor's race. Pratt says he can get over 50% of the vote tonight and then win outright.
I believe I'm winning tomorrow night outright. I think there's a tsunami of votes coming from all the people that are done with politics as usual. All those people that I have, they're not talking to pollsters. They're moms trying to dodge naked zombies with a stroller. There are people walking their dogs to the park, making sure their dog doesn't step on a fentanyl needle.
A couple of more hours until the polls close in California. Pratt has been very effective using viral AI campaign ads. This was his closing argument.
We saw the things you've been searching online. Spencer Pratt? Really?
In this house, we don't believe in Spencer Pratt. He's MAGA.
What about Spencer Pratt is MAGA?
You know those streets downtown? The ones that are full of piss and homeless people? He wants to clean them up.
And those neighborhoods that burned down? The Palisades? Malibu? He wants to rebuild them.
Most likely, Pratt and Karen Bass enter into a runoff come November. Nothing would be better to cover than Karen Bass spending the next 4 months defending what is unquestionably an abysmal record in Los Angeles. We have been told for a long time now, America is changing. Tonight, we find out how and how much. With us now, two-way editor-in-chief Mark Halperin, co-host of the morning meeting Kevin Walling, and Larry O'Connor. Gentlemen, good to see all of you. Mark, start with you. By virtue of the fact that we are even talking about Iowa and Texas going blue and Los Angeles going red, tells us what?
Well, something tells us about the candidates as opposed to the environment, and I'll respectfully dissent and say I don't think Los Angeles is going to go red tonight or in the fall. But those other two races, it's part of the national climate. Race by race is important, but the national climate right now, if it stays on this trajectory, will be horrible for Republicans. I know Larry has a dissenting view on this, but it is shaping up to be a horrible year. And if you ask Republican strategists, why could Iowa go blue? Why could Texas go blue? The answer is the war. Until the war ends, Republican strategists are frozen in amber, unable to figure out how to put a winning campaign together.
Larry, do you think it's as simple as the war? I find Texas and Iowa more important to discuss, perhaps, than L.A., at least when it comes to Republicans. Do folks in D.C. understand how angry the rest of America is over prices?
No, I think they have a pretty good feel for that, and they have a pretty good handle on it. And I also think they know that the direct through line to the price problem right now is energy and gas, because most of the CPI index and inflation numbers have been moving and trending properly, except for gas and energy. That affects a lot. That brings it back to the war. I get that. And you're right that Iowa and Texas will have more effect on national politics, since those are going to be Senate races, although I don't think the Iowa Senate race is really in danger for Republicans. You're right. The best chance of a red state flipping blue at any level, I think, is going to be that Iowa governor's race. The Democrats have a very attractive candidate who hasn't been challenged in the primary. Tallarico, I think, has benefited from the fact that it was a very expensive and very divisive runoff between Paxton and Cornyn. Now that things are going to settle down and Paxton's the nominee, I don't expect to see Tallarico in the lead much longer.
You know, Kevin, all of this conversation about Spencer Pratt is putting a microscope on progressive Democratic policies in the utopia of California, where he points out over and over again of the fentanyl needles and the toxic empathy that has made every problem there worse in the name of climate change and trans rights and no-fault drug use. The question is this: why are Democrats, especially Democrats in Washington, so unwilling to take the basic lessons from the fact that Spencer Pratt even has a prayer in Los Angeles, that normal folks don't like that stuff?
Yeah, hopefully, Leland, they'll learn it, and they'll learn it quickly. The fact that, as you rightly point out, the incumbent Democratic mayor is under 30% in all these polls. Right? There's huge power in incumbency, and she campaigned on cleaning up homelessness just 4 years ago, and the results are mixed, certainly, on that. And there's a level of frustration, especially in our inner cities. We talk about this all the time on the morning meeting, and a Democrat's inability to actually just campaign in reality and authenticity, acknowledging some of those issues, talking about a different vision for how to tackle them, not ceding any ground to kind of MAGA solutions, but having an honest conversation. Matt Mahan, for example, is going to go down in flames, unfortunately. The mayor of San Jose tonight, who campaigned authentically on saying MAGA is not the solution, and Gavin Newsom has let us down on a number of different issues. I think the more that Democrats accept that reality and campaign on that reality, the better we'll do in November.
Kevin, I think what fascinates me about that observation, though, is as a former Californian, I lived there 20 years, Democrats have had one-party rule. Not one of the Democrats running at the state level or in Los Angeles is saying everything is great, 4 more years. Even they're acknowledging that they've got problems. What I'm confused about is what solutions Steve Hilton and Spencer Pratt are bringing to the table: enforce the law, clean things up, arrest people who are breaking the law, and actually bring law and order back to the streets. What about that is MAGA? If that's MAGA, okay, we're all MAGA, because all they're saying is enforce the law.
I think the key indicator, and we talked about this certainly this morning, is the fact that Trump has endorsed these folks, and that is just such a bitter pill for so many Californians.
So the policies aren't MAGA. It's not a policy that's MAGA. It's just because
that
Trump said
endorsement
do it.
Is problematic, certainly.
Well, then you know what? If that's where California is going to vote, they deserve what they're going to get, honestly.
Mark, in a larger sense, are you seeing any Democratic operatives going out to study what Rob Sand is doing in Iowa, for example, and thinking about how that they can apply that nationally to pick up on whatever this thing is, if that means giving up some of the sacred cows of the 2020 woke liberal causes, then so be it to win?
Yeah, I think he's doing three things that I hear other Democrats talk about, and it won't work in every state. But if you're a Democrat running in a red place and a place that's trended against Democrats, the three things he's doing that have caught people's eye. One is he's not playing up his being a Democrat. He's playing it down. A lot of his ads don't even say what party he's in. Two, he's running on competence. He's running on a kind of a non-ideological, just I know how to do stuff in government to make government work for you and your family. And then finally, he's a little quirky, but he's fun, right? He's a normal guy.
Yeah,
he doesn't wear ties. He most of his public appearances, most of his media is him being kind of relaxed and quirky. And all three of those things I hear Democrats talk about, and a lot of them are no different than Mondami, who has much different politics, but adopting the same kind of style of stuff that is modern and speaks in the idiom of normal people as opposed to politicians.
Leland, I'd like to go on the record to say your ties are fun, Leland, and I don't think there's anything unfun about wearing a tie.
Unfun about my ties. Okay, well, thank you. My bosses have feelings about whether it's fun or not that I wear a tie. Rob Sand drives around on an electric motorcycle that looks sort of like a Harley Davidson, and he tells people that he takes it hunting, which I find remarkable in all sorts of ways. But Kevin, I want to get you to this because this is going to tell us a lot about Iowa in sort of where Democrats are. This is the U.S. Senate primary in Iowa. Zach Walz, Josh Turek running against each other. If Josh Turek wins, this is the guy who's the paraplegic who's out campaigning and pulling himself up people's stairs hand over hand to go meet them. That says electability is so important for Democrats going forward.
Yeah, Leland, it does. And I think there is a pragmatic element to my party in terms of supporting these kind of more center-left candidates that just want to win, right, and put up the best fight. You're seeing polling in Michigan, for example, just to the north, where Haley Stevens is up now because I think there's a calculation being made by a lot of Democrats that are realizing, okay, we've tried it with some progressives that can't necessarily win come November, and we can't take chances with some of these candidates, no matter if their politics don't necessarily line up 100%. So that's a key race. As you point out, Josh Turek has a lot of national support, obviously the backing of Leader Schumer's operation and massive amounts of funds coming in towards the end of this campaign, and I'm hopeful that he will prevail in that race tonight.
Leland, it's another variable. It may not be sexy, but money matters. Money matters a ton. It matters in the primaries and it matters in the general, and that's up for grabs. Republicans, James Blair and others have confidently said Republicans will have more money for the first time this cycle. Right. I'm not sure that's true.
I can just imagine how much money Spencer Pratt's going to get if he comes in anywhere close to Karen Bass tonight. It will be such a shock to the system out there in Los Angeles. More coverage of California when we come back. Mark, Kevin, Larry, thank you both. Thank you all very much. Jill Biden's new book is doing something her husband was never able to do. Somehow it has brought the country together. Everyone, I mean everybody, except for the media for some reason, hates it. All right, welcome back. Breaking news from our partners at Decision Desk HQ. DDHQ can now project Trump-backed candidate Ashley Hinson will win the Republican Senate primary in Iowa by, as you can see, a substantial margin. She is the Trump-endorsed candidate who will now go up against Josh Turek, the centrist Democrat candidate, a paraplegic who is known in Iowa for taking his wheelchair to people's homes as he canvasses and then climbing up the stairs by dragging himself up to meet folks as he goes door to door. He also wins by a decisive matchup. Josh Turek and Hinson are now in the general election for the U.S. Senate race in Iowa, a race that is not a must-win, but would be close to a must-win for Democrats if they are going to take hold of the U.S. Senate. Now we go west. Live look at Los Angeles. Former reality star Spencer Pratt hopes for a triumphant Hollywood ending to his long-shot mayoral campaign. You can see the Hollywood sign. Sun hasn't quite set yet. For the first time in decades, the city of Angels has at least somewhat of a realistic chance of electing a registered Republican. Spencer Pratt has been surging in the polls for Los Angeles mayor against incumbent Karen Bass. With us now, Nikki Lorenzo, next star host of Inside California Politics, Christina Pascucci, former California Senate candidate and political strategist. Nikki, there's a lot to unpack here. I think it's important, though, baseline of how it works in California. There are a number of candidates for mayor. What does Spencer Pratt have to do to make a splash tonight?
Well, he's got to continue that message that he is changing California. You know, the incumbent and also the challenger from the left in terms of Karen Bass and Nithya Raman, he said they like to call him a reality star, and he says, I'm the only candidate who's living in reality. I have to tell you, Leland, we're in the middle of our election coverage here in Sacramento. I have a strategist, a Republican strategist, who's joining us tonight. He is working a race in Los Angeles for city manager. And the last thing he said to me before I walked in here to do this hit with you, he said, I'm going to tell you, it's hard for Republicans to win statewide, but Angelinos are very angry. And Democrats are angry. Republicans are, of course, angry. And so are independents. And they shouldn't sleep on Spencer Pratt. So we could see something happen in L.A. that's very unique here in California.
All right, so the rules book says that Spencer Pratt and whoever wants to get into the runoff in November has to get into the top two. If anybody gets above 50%, then they win outright. Christina, I think what Nikki said was really important. There's a lot of anger in Los Angeles. Are Democrats understanding what that anger is in blue America that may not be about Donald Trump?
I think they're underestimating Spencer Pratt still, even after all we've seen him accomplish these past couple months. This fire was very personal. What happened in Palisades and Altadena was extremely personal for Angelinos. They are still angry. And people keep talking about how Karen Bass is in Ghana. It's not about what she did during the fire. It's what happened before and after. Gaslighting constituents, saying she didn't know it was going to be windy. Or before, the reservoir being empty, the LAFD being underfunded, having budget cuts and equipment that wasn't working. So voters are furious, and I've been covering news since 2011. I have never seen people feel so galvanized to want to vote. And we even heard the Registrar of Voters talk today about how they've seen a huge influx of vote-by-mail ballots come in, and over 100,000 people headed to the polls. So that is a big day at the polls for Los Angeles.
That helps Pratt. A little bit of sound from Spencer Pratt. Take a listen.
Yeah, Karen tricked us. She don't get to do that twice. Now you come in here all the way to Crenshaw from the Palisades, and we all got something in common. Let's do it.
That's right. Nikki, you compared Pratt to Donald Trump in 2016. If Pratt gets into the top two, is that the upset similar to 2016, this seismic jolt?
Yeah, I agree. He continues his messaging of what do you have to lose? That was the message from Donald Trump then. You have had years and years of establishment candidates on both sides of the aisle, and are your lives better off? And that's really what his through line has been. Christina mentioned the fires and Karen Bass's record in terms of resources and what she's done as mayor, but homelessness, you know, you just go down the list and you have a very unpopular incumbent, and she's running a race like a traditional politician. We saw this on the debate stage. And when you're saying things like homelessness is down 18%, and Spencer Pratt is articulating what people see on the streets every single day, those numbers don't mean anything. So if he stays on message and is relentless and is just able to plainly speak to voters and resonate with them, when they fill out their ballots, and they're Democrats, they don't need to share that information with their friends. It's very similar to what we saw in 2016 and in the last election in 2024 too.
All right, Christina, Nikki, big thanks to you also for stepping away from your own coverage to talk to us. We all wait for the polls to close in California. One thing for tomorrow when we come back.
Racist police! Off our streets! Racist police! Off our streets! Racist police! Off our streets!
Racist police off our streets. Based on those chants, you would think police in the United Kingdom killed a black man. Turns out they let a white one die. Protesters outside a police station in southeast England are angry about the murder of 18-year-old Henry Nowak. Body cam video shows the moments after police arrived to found Nowak stabbed several times, but the alleged murderer told police Nowak attacked him and yelled racial slurs. Now, none of that happened, but police didn't believe Nowak, who was profusely bleeding, so they handcuffed the victim, and he died literally in police custody. It's the latest in the string of incidents where the UK police protected minority criminals for fear of being called racist. Katie Pavlich is with us tonight. The question is whether this marks a turning point or whether the UK is too far gone.
Yeah, whether they double down or go back to treating everybody with respect and following the facts rather than relying on what they've been told about so-called racial bias. We shall see. Unfortunately, a young man's dead, and his family deserves justice, to say the least. Great to see you, Leland. See you tomorrow.
Have a great show.
Hello, welcome to Katie Pavlich Tonight. Well, we have breaking news. 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley has reportedly been fired by CBS News after clashing with network executives and after he apparently had a blowout fight with the show's new executive producer. Pelley has been a fixture on 60 Minutes since 2004, and his firing is a huge deal for CBS. We'll talk about this and much more in just a moment. But first, it's election night in California, and we're just an hour away from polls closing as we wait for the first votes in the closely watched races for governor and Los Angeles mayor. But we don't expect results tonight or perhaps for weeks. You can thank California Democrats and their universal vote-by-mail policy, which sends ballots to all registered voters, living and dead, who then have a full week after Election Day for their ballot to be counted as long as it was postmarked by Tuesday. It's a massive mess, but that seems to be the point. So will voters take a chance on an outsider, or will they be content to continue the bleak status quo maintained by decades of Democrat control? Here's why some LA voters, including a Democrat, told CNN they voted for Pratt.
What do you think about Pratt's unconventional approach?
I love it.
What is it that you love about it?
He's another Trump.
You, as a Democrat, are voting for Spencer Pratt.
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
I do like his approach for the homelessness. As a person who used to be homeless myself, I was rendered the services that he's talking about. I was able to change my life, 10 years sober with no alcohol and stuff like that.
There you go. Democrats had their chance, controlling the governor's mansion for the last 16 years and running Los Angeles for a quarter century. And what have they delivered? Homeless encampments, rising crime, expensive yet unreliable energy, preventable disasters, and a massive out-migration of families, businesses, and revenue. The definition of insanity, of course, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different results. That's what voters in California have done election after election. They've given Democrats control. And it's time for accountability and something new. So could this election be the GOP's best shot at disrupting California's democratic rule? Pratt reminded voters of the stakes today before polls closed, saying, quote, "If you don't vote, I don't want to hear you ever complain about any of the filth, crime, or decline in LA again. Get off your butt and vote or enjoy what you get." Californians have indeed gotten what they voted for, but it doesn't have to be this way. Joining me now, host of The Larry Elder Show, Larry Elder, and Democratic strategist Scott Bolden. Great to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. So, Larry, you know what it's like to run as a conservative, someone who's not a Democrat in California. What do you make of tonight's primaries?
Well, it's a tough putt for both these races. In LA, only 15% of the registered voters are Republican. The last time we voted for a Republican mayor was 1997, almost 30 years ago. And at that time, 30% of the registered voters were Republican. So it's very, very difficult. In California, especially in LA, Republican is a four-letter word. I think Pratt has a good chance of finishing number 1 or number 2. But even if he does, add up the numbers of Karen Bass and the numbers of the number 3 person, the Democrat Socialists, and you got over 51%. So the question is, will the Democrats finally realize they have had enough of the crime, of the homelessness, of the cost of living, of the fire management, all the bad things that have happened over the last several years? Have they had enough till they drop their reluctance to pull the lever for a Republican voter? That's what a Republican politician. That's really the question, both for the LA race and for the governor's race.
Yeah, is it going to be blue no matter who, or maybe let's try something new, right? So, Scott, is the fact that the polls are tight, I mean, the voting, we will see what happens, but the polls in these primaries are tight. So is that an indictment of California Democrats and their policies? I mean, Karen Bass admits that a lot of what Spencer Pratt is talking about, these things need to be fixed, even though she's been in charge. So does this put pressure, at least on Democrats, to at least try and change some things?
Well, you keep painting this whole election, at least in L.A., with a broad brush. Listen, the incumbent's got some real problems.
40 years.
Yeah, well, that's true. But California has elected at least 2 Republican governors in the last 20-plus years. So in any event, she's got some problems, though, because of the homelessness and because of the fires, and not having a really good response, or even before the fires, what's come out about that. And so that's why the race is tight. She certainly has been endorsed by some pretty significant Democrats like Magic Johnson. I don't know whether it's going to be enough. I sit on the Board of Trustees for Morehouse College. We have members from L.A., and they are complaining about her leadership, and they're very liberal members. And so as a result, that's why it's tight. I still think in the end, there are just too many Democrats, as Larry said, to choose a Republican, if you will, and I just don't think that's going to happen. We'll see.
Yeah, other Republicans are moving away because they want lower taxes and less crime.
And you'd agree that these are tough issues. You've got to be a strong leader and be smart about it, but they're really tough, whether you're talking about Nebraska or you're talking about California.
That's fair.
All tough.
That's fair. But when you pour billions of dollars of taxpayer money into a problem, then you have to hold people accountable. So actually, let's look at but Steve Hilton is speaking right now, running for California governor. Let's take a listen to what he is potentially saying.
How concerned are you that that could be? Well, I'm looking forward to having very good results tonight, so I don't think that word is the one that I would use. I think it's a shame because, as I've been saying all along, my door's been open. I think it's important that we work together, everyone who wants to see change in California. And by the way, I would extend that invitation to work together to every Democrat who wants change. Someone like Matt Mahan, for example, who obviously isn't going to be able to make it into the top 2. I think he's got some practical ideas that would fit much more with the kind of positive, pragmatic approach that I'm outlining in my campaign. So the door is open to anybody who wants to see positive, practical change in California, regardless of party. This is not partisan. It's not Democrat or Republican. It's about change or more of the same. We desperately need change.
All right, so that is Steve Hilton, Republican, running for governor in California. He is speaking right now at Hilton campaign headquarters, I believe, during the primary, which is ongoing, and the polls will be closing here in a couple of hours. But Larry, back to the results that we aren't necessarily going to see tonight or tomorrow or next week. There's currently a Judicial Watch lawsuit against California Secretary of State that alleges more than 800,000 inactive voter registrations are still on the rolls and eligible to vote. They send mail-in ballots to everybody, and they don't purge these records. So what does that mean in terms of the results that we're not going to see? I mean, why does it take 3 weeks or longer in an American city to know who won or not?
It's a microcosm of what's going on here in California, whether it's the homelessness, whether it's the gap between the rich and the poor, whether it's the taxes are the highest state income taxes in the whole country. It's complete and total mismanagement. Democrats have a supermajority of both houses in Sacramento, in the Senate and in the Assembly. And as I mentioned, they haven't elected a Republican governor in 20 years. This is what happens when you have one party rule, just complete and total incompetence. California has been rated the worst state in which to do business for 22 years by CEO magazine. That's the entire time the magazine has been in business. Have we had enough? That's really the $64,000 question that I'm posing to voters in California that routinely pull that lever for the Democratic Party.
You know, Scott.
Well, the reason.
Go ahead. You know, Democrats changed some of these rules after COVID to try and make it easier for people to vote. But COVID's been over for years now. So shouldn't we go back to a system where we know who won at least the day after Election Day?
Well, Iowa couldn't get it right, and several other states couldn't get it right in one night. I'd love to have results in one night. But the challenge with California is you do have mail-in ballots, and there are a lot of Republicans that support mail-in ballots, but you have multiple millions of voters. And so if you're going to count them, if they're date stamped the day of the primary, the day of Election Day, then it's going to take time. No matter how much computer technology you have, it's going to take time to vote or to count those votes. But more importantly, when those votes come in, let's be real clear, I'm a former Democratic State Party chair. When those votes come in, the government needs time to compare who's voted with the voter rolls. Okay, and so you're right about the voter rolls. I'm not saying they need to be perfect, but they also need to be updated and cultivated. And I got to believe that California, with so many people on the rolls, that they're doing that on a regular basis or even irregular basis. But once you do the comparative, then that vote is counted.
Yeah, well, they certainly should be getting rid of people who are no longer able to vote off of the rolls so that when the ballots are coming in the mail, they're not getting filled out and sent in.
Less than 1% or 1/10%. If you look at all the voting cases around the country where there's been voter fraud, it's something like less than 0.5% or less than that.
I think that's a lot like saying really crime is down when it's not, because the numbers on that aren't precisely tracked.
And Katie, how about
a problem with our system? That's all I'm saying. It's not a problem.
I'm old enough to remember when my parents voted the same day. They voted in person. How about same day voting in person? The only time you have absentee ballots when you have a legitimate reason not to be there. We could eliminate all of this and get results a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, that's what first world countries do. I mean, it's crazy that we're 3 weeks in America's second largest city and we're still not going to know who won. It's absurd. But I want to get to this. I want to get to your...
Republicans support it.
Well, they
support
Republicans
that support voting. Yeah, we have states where they're red states, and they support mail-in voting. Even Donald Trump does.
Okay, Florida does, and guess what? They have results the same day. So maybe California should take some notes from Florida and learn how to count in a faster, more accurate fashion. They also clean up their voter rolls in a much better way. Yes, just transfer them over, baby. No, don't do that. That's what Democrats would do. But I got to ask you both about veteran journalist Scott Pelley. Larry, he was fired tonight from CBS after he had a number of disagreements, clashes with the executive producer of 60 Minutes, Nick Bilton. He wrote this long letter talking about why Scott Pelley was fired. He said that he ambushed him. He was disparaging him. He was trying to take over the program. He tried to work this out with him ahead of time. That clearly didn't work. Scott Pelley was publicly going after him, and it made it clear that he was not interested in really working with him on the future of the show. So I'm not surprised this happened. What do you think?
I'm not surprised either. I mean, they had a meeting where it was kind of like a get to know me, and Scott Pelley stands up there and blasts the guy in front of all the other staffers. And I think the meeting lasted about 15 minutes. The producer was so upset about it. And when the producer walks out of the meeting, the other staffers stand up and they applaud Scott Pelley. Scott Pelley is an employee. He does not own the candy store. These are new owners. New owners go in a different direction, and I think it's a good thing. I think 60 Minutes has been biased. We saw that interview that they tailored with Kamala Harris. So Barry Weiss, the new owner, the new boss, is taking that show and that network into a different direction. But again, he's an employee. You stand up there and you blast your boss. My company, by the way, has just been purchased. It's going private. I can't imagine standing up to the new owner going, "Oh, you're going in the wrong direction. How dare you? I think your resume is thin," which is what he said. Are you kidding me? He could have been fired on the spot. I'm surprised he wasn't.
Yeah. Scott, your thoughts about this?
Well, as a former managing partner of a big law firm, at least based in D.C., where partners all have a view of the world, as I say, especially lawyers. And
yeah, especially lawyers.
I agree with my colleague Larry. You just can't do it. I know the passion is there. I know Pellet, regardless of his politics, how much he believes in the media, the press, and 60 Minutes is an institution. Got it, right? But you know what? When there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. I'm really surprised he was fired in the sense that he could have resigned, if you will. Could have written his letter of resignation. He could have gone public. He could have done all these things, but he could not control it enough to walk away and to make even stronger statement. Maybe his emotions got the best of him, but you can't do that in that type of situation. You got to make a difference, and you got to make a statement, no matter who you are or how professional you are.
Right, yeah, I know it wasn't just Mick Bilton who he had a problem with, the executive producer of 60 Minutes. Barry Weiss, of course, was brought in to CBS News to overhaul everything, and this is what he said about her. He said, quote, Barry Weiss does not love this place. She was brought in to kill it, and she's been doing exactly that. So accusing the person in charge of trying to kill your flagship program, probably not the best idea when it comes to keeping your job. All right, we got to run. We'll see, of course, how California shakes out tonight, November, if we ever get the results.
Go Dems.
Until then, Larry Elder, Scott Bolden, thank you for joining us. Great to see you both.
Go Hilton.
Thank you. See you soon.
You'll be number 2.
Well, an elaborate Mexican cartel tunnel was just found underneath the southern border, along with $45 million worth of cocaine. The tunnel was discovered as part of a months-long investigation into a discount storefront located near Otay Mesa, California, right across the border from Tijuana, Mexico. It stretched nearly 2,000 feet. The tunnel was equipped with electricity, ventilation, and a rail system quite sophisticated, which allowed items to move back and forth between Mexico and the United States. 4 individuals were arrested and charged with the alleged distribution of more than a ton of cocaine found in the tunnel. So this seems to be a big blow, major blow to the Jalisco New Generation cartel, believed to be operating the cross-border gateway. They are one of the most powerful and violent drug trafficking organizations, and cocaine is their primary revenue stream. So we're thankful for everyone involved in disrupting the flow of these dangerous narcotics into our communities and, of course, keeping us safe, but raises lots of questions about their influence. Joining me now is U.S. Attorney Adam Gordon and White House drug czar Sarah Carter. Honored to have you both here tonight to talk about this. So, Adam, this case, of course, is part of the Homeland Security Task Force, which is dedicated to eliminating criminal cartels, foreign gangs, human trafficking rings. Also a big part of what your office has done in California, in San Diego. Tell us about what you know, given what you announced yesterday.
Yeah, this is the success story for President Trump's vision of taking the battle to the cartels. What we saw is one of the most sophisticated tunnels in the history of border districts. You're talking about 5.5 football fields worth of tunnels. What's truly amazing in this HSTF model that the president has brought to the American people is the cooperation among all the agencies, so that not only did we find the tunnel, but the defendants were not even able to bring a successful load through. Instead, we seized more than a ton of cocaine. So truly a success story.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how sophisticated this tunnel is, and I have questions about who taught them how to do this, where they're learning it from. Looks like Hezbollah tunnels we've seen in the Middle East and also in South America. But Sarah, you know, since 1993, there have been 28 similarly sophisticated tunnels that have been discovered in Southern California. What's the process like to find these things? This was obviously a long operation before they were able to find it.
Well, absolutely. First, HSTF, our Homeland Security Task Forces, at the direction of President Trump, is why this was so successful, because we work together with our high-intensity drug trafficking areas. Those groups across the United States and along the border have the tools and the technology to be able to locate these tunnels. Also, Border Patrol, we're working with tunnel teams, but I have the same questions, Katie, the same questions about how do they build these sophisticated tunnels? Where are they learning it? We saw it when we were in Israel. I know you were in Israel. You were able to see some of those Hezbollah tunnels. I did too. This is a very serious national security risk to our nation. And this is why we are so hyper-focused on it at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. We want to hit the cartels at every single choke point, meaning it's not just about the drugs that are coming through, which are horrific enough, but it's access for people to come into the country undetected. Tijuana is infamous and famous for the tunnels. The tunnels started there many, many, many years ago. This is America's longest war. Chapo Guzman was famous for starting these tunnels. So it's not just in California, not just in Tijuana, but across the entirety of the nearly 2,000-mile U.S. southern border that we have to be careful with this. Another big thing for CJ&G, this is a blow to CJ&G, but remember, we took down El Mencho, and we did that with the Mexican government, working together with our intelligence apparatus. Yeah. So CJ&G is really feeling it right now. This is a great success for California, though, and shutting down this tunnel is going to save American lives and actually stop the flow of narcotics into the United States. Another great success for President Trump.
Absolutely. Adam, in terms of the intelligence that Sarah's talking about, the intelligence apparatus, how important was it for President Trump to make sure that these cartels were reclassified not as just a law enforcement problem, but as a national security problem that needed to receive this categorization of terrorism in order to really go after them?
I think it's all about the whole of government approach. And obviously the president has talked and spoken at length about the need to have every single agency dedicated to bringing the fight to the cartels. What did he do? Well, you got January 20th, you have the designation of Sinaloa and CJ&G as foreign terrorist organizations. Mm-hmm. That opened up a chessboard to actually allow for our office and similar offices to bring narco-terrorism material support charges against high-value targets. Something else that I don't think gets enough sort of context is the expulsions that are happening from Mexico into the United States, where Mexico is actually not even requiring extraditions, but using their national security law to quickly provide individuals to the United States for prosecution. So instead of waiting 4, 5, 6 years for an extradition, we've had defendants like Sagittario, who was responsible for the largest fentanyl seizure in world history, 1.5 tons, be arrested December 31st. 20 days later, he's in a court in San Diego, actually having the American justice system brought to him.
Yeah, well, we like swift justice, and I'm glad to hear that the Mexican government is at least cooperating a little bit more when it comes to these bad actors who are trying to harm Americans. Sarah Carter, Adam Gordon, thank you so much for being here and for all the work that you're doing. We look forward to hearing back about the progress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, back to a story we mentioned earlier in the show. A white student named Henry Novak gets stabbed by a non-white attacker, and police let him die in the street because they think he's the racist. Outraged Brits are calling it the George Floyd effect. We'll have details up next. Plus, it's the final hour of voting in the California primaries, and all eyes are on the governor's race, and they're also on Spencer Pratt in the Los Angeles mayor's race. We'll bring you results as soon as they come in. But first, here's what's coming up on Jesse Weber Live.
All right, we got special election coverage for you tonight on Jesse Weber Live, going 2 hours, primaries in 6 states. Big focus, California. Governor's race. We also got the LA mayor's race. A lot of eyeballs on that. Big names coming on tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. Jesse Weber Live, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then.
To add to the laundry list of issues we brought up tonight, Californians are facing, there's one we haven't mentioned yet. Mosquitoes. Just in time for summer, Google's parent company, Alphabet Inc., is hoping to release 32 million mosquitoes in California and Florida over the course of 2 years through its debug program. Seems like bugging to me. The company is currently seeking approval from the EPA to release millions of sterile, lab-grown mosquitoes in an effort to reduce the population of disease-carrying ones. Jesse, I guess it's good to be where we are, New York and D.C., although there are lots of mosquitoes in D.C., and anytime I walk out the door, I got to spray that DEET all over me because they eat me alive.
Honestly, I would just keep on doing that because this sounds like a nightmare. This sounds like the beginning of a Steven Spielberg movie. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Let's just release millions of these.
Just a little Frankensteining of these mosquitoes, just millions of them.
Sounds like a good idea. We'll see what happens. Let's have fun.
We'll see what happens. So speaking of that, the polls in California are about to close, so you're going to take it from here. Have a great show.
Thanks so much.
See
Good seeing you. Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special 2-hour Jesse Weber Live. The polls just closed in California, and our primary election coverage continues as voters in 6 states, California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, South Dakota, New Mexico, they made their way to the polls today. A lot at stake. We're going to be watching them all. We're going to bring you updates. We're going to bring you results as they come in, but we're also going to keep a particular eye on the high-profile races out of California, because those are the ones that have really captured the headlines. So the governor's race and, of course, the LA mayor's race. Here's the question. Could incumbent Karen Bass end up going head-to-head in a runoff against former The Hills reality star Spencer Pratt? These are implications that could have effects across the entire country. So all night long, we have superstar guests coming on with unique perspectives like former Mayor Bill de Blasio. How about longtime Los Angeles resident Kato Kaelin? So a lot to get into. I want to start right now with the race for governor in California. So this is where Trump-endorsed Republican Steve Hilton went in tonight trailing frontrunner Democrat Javier Becerra by just less than a percentage point. So with 23.4% of likely voters supporting Hilton to Becerra's 23.8%. Think about that for a second. This is California. But billionaire progressive Tom Steyer, by no means out of the running, polling at 19.1%. And the governor's race has seen record-breaking spending as candidates debate cost of living and inflation and taxes. These are all front of mind to voters. Now, the polls just closed a few minutes ago, but here's something to remember, something to keep in mind. Because of California's typical heavy mail-in voting turnout, an answer as to who's coming out on top, unlikely to come tonight, unlikely to know who's going to advance into the general election, but nonetheless, we're going to be watching with any updates. Now, the other race all eyes are on, as I mentioned before, it is playing out in the city of Los Angeles. Los Angeles incumbent Mayor Karen Bass is in the battle of her political life against progressive candidate, City Councilwoman Nitha Raman and registered Republican Spencer Pratt. According to a recent Berkeley Los Angeles Times poll going into tonight, Bass was leading Raman by only 1 percentage point among likely voters, 26% to 25%. Pratt close behind, 22%. Now, the Palisades fire has been front and center of both of Bass's opponents' campaigns, both heavily criticizing her response and recovery to the tragedy. There's also issues of homelessness and ICE and crime. So I want to get started right now by bringing in News Nation national correspondent Brooke Schaefer live on the ground outside of Spencer Pratt's headquarters. Good to see you, Brooke. First, before we even talk about voter turnout tonight, what is the vibe like there? What's the response? What are you feeling? Is there a sense of optimism at the Pratt camp?
Yeah, well, this is a little different. Normally, when we're at a campaign HQ, an election, watch party, we are inside with them. There's usually a riser. You've got all of the media set up. Tonight, we're just outside of the watch party. It's just over our shoulder to the right there. There's, black curtains. All of the media are actually standing outside on the sidewalk. So we don't have our eyes on Spencer Pratt himself, but we can tell you that his camp certainly feeling optimistic going into this. I do want to talk, though, about the voter sentiment, Jesse, because we spent the day outside of a polling location in Los Angeles, and it was really interesting when we were having those conversations with voters, because a lot of them were saying, they were kind of apathetic, really, to the options that were in front of them. They didn't really love who they had to vote for, really, in any race. If you're talking about the governor's race, if you're talking about the LA mayor's race, we heard from a lot of people who said, hey, we were really just kind of waiting this out because we wanted to see how this was going to shake out, see who our options really were at the end of this before we made a decision. But we asked them, too, about what was driving them, what was their motivation ultimately today when they went to the polls. And, a lot of people talked about homelessness, that issue across Los Angeles specifically, and of course in other states as well, housing, and as you mentioned, the fires. There's a lot of frustration about the response to the Palisade fires. Here is just a couple of voters that we talked to today.
I had to vote for Spencer Pratt. I just couldn't in good conscience vote for someone who had a hand in burning down our community. I lost my house, my business, my kids lost their schools. It's been devastating. And I just love what Spencer has for a mission.
Obviously the fires were a disaster and on so many levels. But I think to me it's more the disappointment of he's the one guy in the election talking about the things that I feel like need to be talked about. I just don't think he's a qualified person to hold public office. So I wish that Mayor Bass or Councilwoman Raman would kind of speak more to those issues and understand where so many people are coming from, and that's what's made him popular.
And so Spencer Pratt has really tapped into that frustration and that anger that people might have with Karen Bass and her administration right now. She's running for re-election. The question, of course, is whether or not he can turn that frustration into votes tonight. Jesse?
I don't remember an LA mayor's race getting this much attention in quite some time, which goes to the idea of voter turnout. So you talked about how people maybe are not loving the options, but from what you can see, are a lot of people turning out to vote in this primary? Because primaries can be wish-washy. Maybe some of them don't turn out as much for that as they do the general. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, that's, of course, important to keep in mind, right? We're talking about a primary election. This is not necessarily an election that is going to bring people out in droves. We did see some lines at the polling location that we were at earlier today. But even still, there is the question of voter turnout and the fact that there are so many candidates out there, especially the governor's race in particular. We're talking about a really packed field in that race, and really a lot of candidates that people told us they weren't that excited about. There is no real clear front runner in that race, and so that could lead to some lower voter turnout numbers for sure. Jesse?
So again, the polls are closed, but when can we expect the results? I talked about the mail-in voting issue. I mean, would we get any answers in the next couple of hours unless there was some sort of blowout, unless one of the candidates meets a threshold? I mean, you tell me when we might get some sort of answers or some sort of results.
Everything that we have been hearing is that it's probably going to take a bit till we get any results here, mostly because there are so many candidates here. These are expected to be some pretty tight races. You've also got mail-in ballots, of course, to go through. So from what we have been told, we're not really expecting any results tonight.
And can you just explain for our viewers who are tuning in, California's a little bit different. I mentioned it before. The system's a little bit different, right? This is jungle primary. Can you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this is called, here in California, they've got what's called a jungle primary. And that means that everybody is on the same ballot. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It is not a closed primary. You can vote for either party. And at the end of this, the top two are the ones who will move on to November. So that could be two Democrats, that could be a Democrat and a Republican like we traditionally see, that could be two Republicans. And so Democrats going into today, Jesse, have been really hopeful, optimistic, encouraged that they were going to get at least one of those two spots. So the question for a lot of people about this race had just kind of been like, okay, especially with the governor's race I'm talking about here, had been who is going to be in second, who is going to get that second spot. And because it was such a crowded field for Democrats in the governor's race, there was a concern that maybe Democrats might be splitting the votes between themselves. So Republicans see an opportunity there. Those Republicans, including Steve Hilton, hopeful that they can inch in and get that second spot. Republicans make a play here in California.
It's pretty remarkable to look at those numbers, the polling numbers with Steve Hilton. I mean, the last time Republican governor was like 20 years ago. But look, I think it's such a democratic process if you talk about having these options as opposed to people who are kind of, have apathy for the two-party system. I mean, this feels much more democratic. I mentioned you're outside the Pratt camp. Before I let you go, anything that you're hearing about the Bass camp or the Rahman camp, how they're feeling?
They're feeling hopeful. I mean, I think everybody's, it's still, polls just closed, so every campaign you're still going to hear the same message, right, that they are still feeling optimistic. They are watching this, and, Bass has really started to form her messaging against Pratt in particular, telling people not to get distracted by a reality TV star in this campaign, that there are bigger issues that we need to focus on. So I think it's safe to say every camp still right now feeling very hopeful, very optimistic.
All right, we're in the early hours of this. Brooke Schaefer, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit more. The nation's second largest city and the world's fourth largest economy are on the verge of making major political decisions. And what happens there, what happens in California, I believe could have a huge impact on the rest of the country. Because you have to imagine political strategists across the country are paying very careful attention to what happens tonight. Not only are there issues of public safety and affordability and housing and quality of life all on the table, but given the unusual dynamics of these races and who is taking center stage, the voting results could have an effect on statewide and national campaigns. What do the LA and governor races out of California tell us about the political mood of the country? Are voters prioritizing certain issues? Could the results offer an early glimpse into the strategies that both parties may embrace when they head into the midterm elections? So I want to bring in somebody who knows better than most people what it's like leading one of the country's economic and cultural engines, the former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio. Good to see you again, sir. Thanks for taking the time. Big night. Last time you were here, you were emphatic that Spencer Pratt would not be the next mayor of LA. Do you still believe that? A lot has changed since then.
I'm still emphatic, Jesse. Look, I give Spencer Pratt and his campaign credit for some very clever AI-generated ads. They're outrageous. They're inappropriate in some ways.
By the way, he didn't even take full credit for them. He just shared them, he said.
Yeah, look, I don't know who's behind them. And some of the underlying messages are really inappropriate and divisive. But no one can deny they're clever. They get attention. And they tap into frustrations that people feel. But that's a very different issue than whether you can put together enough votes to get to the next round, and even more, can you get enough votes to win a majority in a progressive and democratic city like Los Angeles? I mean, Spencer Pratt, what he has said in this campaign, what he said in the past, it's going to come back to haunt him. He also has no legitimate experience to govern a city. And I tell you something, voters are more discerning than they're given credit for. People can actually tell the difference between someone who just talks a lot versus someone who actually knows how to govern.
But you also know that sometimes experience and a role in government don't always lead to success, and sometimes it's an outsider. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but there has to be a lesson that's taken away from this, other than maybe campaigns have to resort to move more forward with, I don't know, AI-generated materials or social media. He's really sparked something. There is a frustration. You mentioned it. And whether it's homelessness or public safety or housing costs, what is the lesson that's going to come out of this? Because you look at him in the polls, and whether he advances or not, I feel like there is a takeaway here, no?
Yeah, Jesse, I agree. Look, if we're talking about facts, if we're talking about substance, Karen Bass deserves a lot of credit. Crime is way down in LA, down to levels you haven't seen since the early 1990s. Homelessness is down. She's actually done a lot of great work. That doesn't mean the message is getting through yet. And I think in a runoff, she has to really project much more clearly a populist message of change, because she's been making change. I think the bottom line to your question is... Are people feeling that, though?
Are people feeling that, though?
I don't know if they are, honestly, but I think it gets to your point. The candidates who are succeeding are the ones who are tapping into the legitimate anger that people feel. Most Americans feel economically they're stuck. Inflation's been horrible. They don't feel particularly very hopeful for the next generation. And honestly, that should be a strong suit for Democrats all over the country to embrace that economic populism, to speak about how the wealthy are getting away with a lot, not paying their fair share in taxes, how we have to do something very different to get people affordable housing and health care. Those are long-term, historic Democratic positions. What we need is candidates who will express them in a populist manner. And I think what we see here is, on the work, Bass has done some really extraordinary things. She has a chance, and I think she will make the runoff, to express that in a way that can reach people better. But I think that the reality of Pratt is, don't mistake clever advertisements for a message or a body of work that's actually going to get people to want someone to be their mayor.
You would agree, people have moved out of California recently, some high-profile people. They ended up in Florida, they ended up in Texas. They could be, citing ideology, they could say affordability, so high taxes. When you talk about that, those feel like issues that can't be ignored, and it does raise a question. Is this, when you look at big cities like Los Angeles or New York, how much is it the blame for management versus it's very hard to equate that to other cities across the country. But again, you are seeing turnover. You are seeing people leaving.
Yeah, you are. You're also seeing a lot of people come in, and a lot of people, as in the case of New York, I can say we're producing more millionaires all the time. So it's not just about rich people wanting to leave. I think the bottom line here is, yeah, of course, for some people it's taxes, for some people it's political differences. I am personally very disgusted at the folks in Silicon Valley who made their fortune in California. California gave them the talent and all the support to become ultra rich, and then they leave the minute they're asked to do their, to pay their fair share. That's not cool. But I think you're right to say all of these factors are affecting some people, including just ideology. Some folks who are less progressive are going to more conservative jurisdictions. That's normal enough. And I think you've seen vice versa with that, too. But the bottom line here is, and this is really where Democrats have to pay attention, Jesse, the American people do not like the status quo. Donald Trump in 2024 spoke effectively against the status quo. Now that's come back to bite him. Look at the poll numbers in this latest New York Times Siena poll. He's down to, I think, 37% approval. Trump is vulnerable. Republicans are vulnerable. The Democrats, if they embrace that populist economic message, take the anger and the frustration that Spencer Pratt is keying into, but actually talk about policies that are going to change things and reach people, this could be an incredible year for Democrats.
Let me push back on that a little bit, because you're seeing some of the Trump-backed candidates having success. I mean, even if you look at what happened with Massey, and then look at Hilton. I mean, let's just focus on that for a second, the governor's race in California, which I find fascinating. I mean, to see Hilton in California, a blue state like that, getting those numbers is something we haven't seen, again, I don't believe, in almost like 20 years. What do you take away from that? I mean, that's significant.
It's meaningful, but Jesse, I wouldn't overrate it. First of all, when you mentioned Massey and the other Republican primaries, that's inside the Republican Party, where Trump obviously has immense popularity. That doesn't reflect where the bigger electorate is at. Trump is losing the overall electorate. He's losing independence in a very big way in this country. If you're talking about the situation in California, look, it's a huge field of candidates. Therefore, a one Republican standing out with Trump's support is going to represent the kind of support Republicans have in California. I think they have 25 or 30% in California. They don't have enough to win in California. Maybe one of them gets to the runoff, but Republican's not going to be governor of California. That's a clear never, especially after some of what Trump did, sending in the National Guard to LA and other things that really hurt California. So I think we should not mistake the fact that one Republican candidate's been able to consolidate that block for his overall viability in November.
And if you're wrong on either the mayor's race or the governor's race, you're going to come back on. We're going to talk about it, right? You agree?
I'm ready, brother.
Okay,
I'll take that bet.
All right, good.
I'll take that bet.
All right, Bill de Blasio, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you making the time.
You're welcome, brother.
All right, so we got some breaking news before we go to break. According to reports, CBS News has fired 60 Minutes veteran Scott Pelley following a reported heated public argument Monday between Pelley and Nick Bilton, the show's new executive producer, who was installed last week by editorial chief Barry Weiss. Pelley is the fourth journalist to leave the long-running show since February, leaving just 3 to handle reporting as the show approaches its 59th season. We're going to keep a very careful eye on this story, including the legal ramifications of this. Maybe we'll do a follow-up on that as well. But coming up, we want to focus on the election. Superheroes, lightsaber battles. Is the future of politics, is that what we're seeing? Well, if you've been watching the LA mayor's race, as we've been talking about, you may already have an opinion, because a host of AI-generated ads starring Spencer Pratt have been making some big waves online. But is it making him more enemies than fans? We're going to take a closer look right after the break. Spencer Pratt's reality show fame earned him early headlines when he first entered the race for mayor of Los Angeles. But since that time, he has gotten almost as much attention for appearing in a slew of AI-generated videos, portraying him essentially as the city's savior. In fact, in one, he's even portrayed as this Batman-like superhero, with incumbent Mayor Karen Bass playing the part of the Joker, images of burning Hollywood sign. You get the imagery. Now, Pratt has denied involvement in making the videos, even calling them fan-made in a now deleted Instagram post, but that hasn't stopped him from reposting the videos, which, by the way, have racked up millions of views. And these videos may be a look into the future of political advertising. You had former presidential candidate Jeb Bush even called the Batman video, quote, maybe the best political ad of the year. But as with most things, AI, there is just as much criticism as praise, which is something that Los Angeles Magazine learned firsthand when they published a special election issue featuring an AI-generated cover that depicts AI-generated versions of mayoral candidates Nitharaman and Pratt posing somewhat cozily together as LA burns in the background. And while Karen Bass, her face doesn't appear on the cover, there's this enormous flag of Ghana, which references her trip to West Africa during last year's Palisades fire. It stands in for the current mayor. It's been a big source of controversy for her. And when the magazine unveiled the cover, it posted this on social media as a way of an explanation, saying, quote, "The cover is fake, the crisis is real. Whether you love it, hate it, question it, or can't stop looking at it, this is the LA we're living in." But the cover and the explanation, it provoked some strong reaction online, with some saying that even though the candidates didn't want to be photographed together, they could have used a human graphic designer, not an AI, to produce it. So the question is, was using AI to create that cover a mistake? Was it a glimpse at the future? Was it genius? Here to give his take is Los Angeles Magazine's co-owner, legendary trial attorney Mark Garagos, whose podcast, Two Angry Men, Reasonable Doubt, they're available wherever you get your podcasts. Let me tell you something, Mark. It's great to see you. I'm spoiled. I saw you in Vegas. You were right next to me. You were on the pirate ship with me. It's not the same. It's not the same, but I'm happy to have you on nonetheless. Okay, where did the idea for the AI cover come from?
It actually was born out of the fact that it started as we do a cover that has all of the candidates, 14. Then it quickly whittled down to should we have 5, and then it became apparent that there was going to be basically a battle amongst the 3. But none of them, all 3 of them were extended an invitation. All 3 refused to pose together. And so then it evolved into, at the time that it went to print, who's going to be a battle for the number 2? Because in this race for mayor, it's 50+1. So nobody, at least as we're sitting here right now, believes for a second that anybody was going to get over 50%, and the battle would be for number 2, and those were the number 2. Plus, they couldn't be more polar opposite in a lot of their views. And yes, you did see the symbolism of the Ghana flag flying in the background. And I thought, there has been some controversy, but it has illustrated, I don't think when this went to print, anybody understood the magnitude of the AI kind of revolution in terms of the political sphere. But it turned out that we became somewhat prescient.
And look, some would say, hey, any press is good press, and it's getting a lot of attention. I guess when you look at it, the key thing is it may be a fake, right? It may not be a real photograph. They wouldn't pose together. But the idea is the reality. That's the key. This is the reality that LA is facing. What do you mean by that? What do we not know? As we're watching this from across the country, we're paying very careful attention to this race. What should we be knowing about the situation in LA and about this mayor's race?
Well, one of the things, LA Magazine is literally in the heart of downtown LA. It's in the Engine Company 28 building. It's right next to the metro station. It's a walking distance from Skid Row. We're kind of nestled in where many of the restaurants, the legendary restaurants like the Pantry, are now out of business. But we've returned down to downtown LA to fight it out here. By contrast, the legacy media LA Times fled to El Segundo. In fact, a lot of people reference it as the El Segundo Times. But we're there. We're in downtown LA. And I jokingly say we've got Lebanon Alley behind us, but it really is nicknamed Fentanyl Alley. We have a tremendous problem in downtown Los Angeles. When you look back a mere 8 years ago, it was a destination. It was where people were moving. It was vibrant. It was something to behold. And I was born in downtown LA. I went to law school in downtown LA. I've been there for over 40 years practicing in downtown LA. So it's kind of like our last stand, so to speak.
So let me ask you this. The idea about this, everybody's feeling it. Everybody has an opinion about it. What are you hearing in your circles? Is Pratt getting recognition? Is he getting this kind of attention? Is he getting support? Or are those who are looking at maybe Rahman as kind of a middle ground candidate if they're displeased with Bass?
It's really been an amazing dynamic. 2 days ago, Mark Halperin, who's a political commentator, had made the prediction that Karen Bass wouldn't even get into the runoff. He's since revised that, actually, when he was being interviewed by Alina Bovian of LA Mag, the digital editor-in-chief, and said now that he doesn't think that Pratt will get into the runoff.
Right.
It is a fluid situation going into this, but only 2 out of those 3 are going to make it. There's been some speculation that Karen Bass would like to have a run against Spencer Pratt, because then she believes that all of Venithia supporters would coalesce around her.
Right. And look, as I mentioned this before, the Palisades fire is going to be a big point of conversation, which actually, before I let you go, I got a legal issue going on here. So the Palisades fire, as it's been an issue in this race, did you know the prosecutors now say that the man that caused that, he looked up to Luigi Mangione as some sort of Robin Hood-like figure? That's a big development where you see the law crisscrossing with politics. How much, by the way, from a legal point of view, before I let you go, is that going to affect the case against him?
Well, I don't think there are legions of people who are supporters of him, especially in L.A. I mean, the fires in Los Angeles have been such a traumatic, and rightfully, so in terms of the devastation they did. It's not like the same situation, if you will, about Luigi Mangione. So I understand that he may, but it just takes one look at the suspect in the Palisades fire case to understand, if you look in his eyes, what the issues are there.
Hey, listen, the allegations facing both of them, nothing can be excused. I don't care who supports who or doesn't. Listen, Mark Garagos, great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Even though I can't see you in person, I love to have you any which way I can get you.
Good to see you too, Jesse. And the pirate ship was one of the highlights.
It was a highlight for me too. I miss it every day. Thanks so much, sir. Good seeing you. All right.
Thank you.
Up next, more on the LA mayoral race. Some famous faces lending support to the reality star turned mayoral candidate. On the other hand, other Hollywood stars say Spencer Pratt should not lead their city. But just how much will star power affect the outcome of the race in the end? I'm going to talk to 2 podcasters who have their fingers on the pulse of LA. That's next. All right, welcome back. Election night, primary night. We're watching the results. We have Decision Desk HQ carefully monitoring the situation in these races. If we have any updates, we'll make sure to bring them to you. But right now, the eyes of the nation are on Los Angeles tonight. We're waiting for the results of the LA mayoral primary coming in, and the polls are now closed. There is a lot of anticipation about which 2 candidates are going to advance to November's general election, and the only way that someone could outright win tonight is if they get more than 50% of the vote. I was just talking about it with Mark Garagos. But the mayoral race has been this dead heat, which makes it so interesting. And the contest for the 2nd largest city in the country has become a national story as incumbent Mayor Karen Bass, a former congresswoman, faces 2 leading challengers: former reality TV villain Spencer Pratt and city councilwoman Nitha Raman. And of course, with Pratt being a reality star and LA being one of the nation's entertainment capitals, we've been hearing the political opinions of a lot of celebrities on both sides. So let's take a look at that, okay? On the list of celebs supporting Pratt's run, you got Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, Paris Hilton, Dennis Quaid, Billy Bush, Catherine McPhee, David Foster. Pratt's also getting a lot of support from his former castmates from the Hills, including Kristen Cavallari, Brody Jenner, Audrina Patridge, and this was an interesting one. While Spencer's own sister and fellow Hills star Stephanie Pratt didn't quite back him at first, she recently changed her tune. Now, not all LA-based celebrities want Spencer Pratt to be their next mayor. That list includes Vivica Fox, Drew Carey, Chelsea Handler, Lisa Rinna, not surprisingly, Jimmy Kimmel. But how much influence do celebrities and influencers really have on voters today once they get to the polls? Joining me now, 2 podcasters who live and vote in L.A., Donna Bowling, host of Daily Dose of Donna, and Zach Peter, host of No Filter with Zach Peter. Love to have you both on. I feel like I'm having you on all different subjects, and I love it. Donna, I'm going to start with you. First, the celebrity aspect. Spencer Pratt being a celebrity in L.A., how important is that? How important is that name recognition to voters in there?
I think in a way you would think it would be a great thing, but in Spencer's case, I actually think it hurts him. And the reason why is because of the way that you just announced him. reality TV villain Spencer Pratt. And Spencer, I've really followed him over the last few years, but definitely since the fires. He has so much more going for him than what happened 20-some years ago on the reality show. But in this case, it actually hurts him. The reason he has so much support is because so many people have fallen in love with Spencer Pratt in who he is now, not for who they thought he was before.
That's an interesting point. That's an interesting point. Like authenticity, right? Zach, the endorsements, the non-endorsements. Do celebrities really have a sway on voters? And I actually kind of wonder, do influencers, online influencers, have more of a sway today?
I mean, I think if celebrities had any sort of power in influencing elections, Kamala would have won. We would have had Hillary as president. There are so many. We've seen this decline. People are tired of celebrities lecturing to us from their ivory towers. I mean, I was getting into a few spars on Twitter the other night with some well-known celebrities and reality stars that were upset that I was endorsing Spencer Pratt, and it goes to show you that I think people are tired of listening to somebody sit up in their ivory tower that don't understand the issues that most Americans, and in this case Angelenos, are facing. These are moms that want their children to go to school and not have to step over needles or deal with drug addicts roaming the streets. I want to be able to take my dogs outside for a walk in downtown LA and not have to dodge broken liquor bottles everywhere. So these are the issues that matter to real people. I am a real person. Donna's a real person. So maybe, yes, that influencer content creator category is a little more relatable than Chelsea Handler as she tries to, virtue signal and tell us what we should be doing as she sits on her pile of money.
And Zach, let me just follow up on that. I don't know if you heard my conversation with Bill de Blasio earlier on. I mean, he doesn't believe Pratt's going to win. He doesn't think he's a serious candidate in that regard. Why are people voting for Pratt or supporting Pratt over Rahman? Like, you can understand, for example, the issues that Karen Bass has, particularly with the Palisades fire. But talk to me about why perhaps Rahman is not the choice.
I mean, she's a bag of stale ramen noodles. Nobody wants to hear, the old politicians anymore, And I think that the reason she doesn't resonate with voters is because nobody knows who she is. Nobody knows what she stands for. And when you do see what she stands for, I mean, just seeing the clip the other day of her gawking at moms that were talking about trying to get homeless encampments away from schools. And she says, your kids are not going to be any safer if the tents are 500 feet away from the school. But yet, when protesters come up and start putting tents in front of her home, she then complains about the safety of her children. It's the double standard. People don't know who she is, and what they are seeing of what she's giving us is a whole lot of hoopla that nobody's buying anymore. We're tired of the stale old politics games, and someone like Spencer Pratt, who's a dad of 2 young boys who lost his home to Mayor Bass, that resonates with people because he's speaking to the heart of those Angelenos. This is a city that he was born and raised in. It's a city that I was born and raised in, and that's why he speaks to people like me.
It seems to me that issue, Donna, of him losing his home, and it doesn't matter, whether it's the trail or the hotel, him losing his home and his life being affected. I mean, that's the level of relatability that not all politicians. What are you seeing in the industry? Are people supporting Spencer Pratt? Maybe not openly, maybe vocally. What are you seeing, Donna? How do you see it?
I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, when you mentioned Nithya Raman, I live in Nithya Raman's district. I'm a born and raised Los Angeles person, also 45 years old this year. I have never seen Los Angeles in the state that it's in. The home that we lived was our dream home, dream neighborhood, and literally homeless people on the corner of our blocks every single day in Nithya Raman's district. So that's what I think about Nithya. But back to the celebrities, I think celebrities and influencers and all of them, it's so interesting. It's very, very hush-hush. Online, there's a certain kind of perception. We can't say that we like Spencer. They will think I'm MAGA. They will think that I am a super conservative. They will think that I am anti-immigrants, like these crazy, really out there thoughts. So a lot of people say it after a glass of wine over, at a bar. Oh my God, we need to get Spencer in there. And then they're scared to put it online.
Hey, I think there was an ad about that. I remember the 3 guys at the barbecue were like, I'm not saying I'm MAGA, but Spencer Pratt really does have good ideas. I will tell you this much, I'll stand by it. I think whether he endorsed the ads or created the ads, the AI videos, It's genius marketing, and I think every campaign across this country has to reevaluate how they get that message out there using social media. You have to, after what Spencer Pratt did. Listen, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to give your perspective on this. Donna Bowling, Zach Peter, I'm very excited to have you back. I don't know what next topic I'm going to have, but I just know I love having both
regulars.
of you. You're regulars. You're regulars. It's amazing. Great to have you both here, and thank you for explaining the situation there.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right. So, up next, he's called Los Angeles home for decades and then found himself at the center of one of the city's most infamous murder cases. Now, Cato Kalin is weighing in on the city's high-stakes race for L.A. mayor and explaining why he's throwing his support behind Spencer Pratt. He represents what a lot may be feeling, and he's live next. All right, our special election coverage continues, including in California, and I want to turn now to a familiar face, someone who's called Southern California home for decades. Cato Kalin became a household name in 1995 when he testified as a key witness in the O.J. Simpson murder trial. And at the time, Kalin was living as a house guest on Simpson's property in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. It was a detail that put him at the center of one of the most watched trials in American history. But long before that trial, he was building a life in Los Angeles. He's watched this city grow and change over the years. And tonight, as voters decide who are going to lead the nation's second largest city, Cato Kalin says it should be Spencer Pratt, arguing L.A. needs a change. Now, while he can't actually cast a ballot in this race, as he lives just outside the Los Angeles city limits, his perspective is important because it represents what many may be feeling. Cato Kalin, host of the true crime series Murder in a Minute, joins me live now. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for taking the time. Big picture here. Why do you think people are showing up to the races? Why do these races matter? And when I say races, yes, the LA race, but also the governor's race.
Well, you know, Jesse, I think it's because we're sick of it. We're sick of it, of how life is. And it's really not about Democrat, Republican. It's not red or blue. It's, don't you want it to be a better place to live? I mean, who doesn't want to have a better place to live? And it's just, what do you have to lose? It's really simple. What do you have to lose? Nothing's happened in 4 years. Karen Bass has been awful, and Newsom has been awful, and it's just time for a change. I really think, I don't know Spencer Pratt, but I really think he's hit a nerve, and he knows with the ads that he's running, he's hitting it where people are going, yeah, give this guy a chance. And he's a smart guy. I think he's going to surround himself with smarter people, and I think that's going to make a huge difference. And I think the people that Bass surrounds herself with are not smart. I don't think she's smart. She goes to Guyana to a field trip, basically, when she knows there's low on water, there's windstorms, and a city burns down. Destruction everywhere. It's awful. We have to seriously, Jesse, make it the Golden State. It's not golden anymore. It's brown and filthy on the streets. People out here are on, walking on pins and needles, and I'm literally walking on pins and needles. Watch your step. She's passing out hypodermic needles. I mean, who wants to live that kind of life? You got to have someone who's going to clean it up, and I think that's his #1 mission, to make L.A. livable. And right there, I've got it. And you called him villain. I can relate to that only because I was just a witness in a trial.
Yeah, because you said, and it goes back to what Donna said earlier, right? I mean, this idea of how he's being portrayed. One of the reasons I understand you support him is because you know what it's like to be judged by the public. And she said earlier, his whole image has changed now.
100%. I'm happy that I can afford my own couch now. So I'll tell you, Jesse, people pick on you, but I believe, just like I am, I think Spencer has always believed in himself, and I think that is the power, and people see that. I think they see that he is a winner. Robert Redford did a movie called The Candidate. I liken him to that sort of thing, that he's this got a fish out of water, but now he's made a point, and people have kind of he's motivated people to want to go out and vote. And I really believe that he is going to be the mayor of Los Angeles.
What do you say, and I had Bill de Blasio on earlier, and I did my hot take on this, my digital show. Experience matters. And when you're dealing with L.A., which is very complicated, it's very complex. I mean, even if you're talking about preparedness for an emergency situation and trying to properly coordinate that, Karen Bass had her own difficulties. Bringing in an outsider who doesn't know the way it works, is that the way to go?
Well, I think it's the people he's going to have to meet. I believe I supported Rick Caruso, and I think if I'm hearing rumor that maybe Caruso is going to be in his camp, I think it's having those kind of experienced people that'll make a difference. And I think Spencer Pratt's doing all the right things. I think his ads are showing that he's going to what he believes in his ads, and I think that's the main motivation. Like I said, he's hit this nerve, and I just really believe we need to make it the Golden State. And the same thing for Steve Hilton. We got to. Right. What do you have to lose, right, Jess? What do you have to lose, people? It's not Democrat, Republican. It's about becoming a better state.
These numbers that we're seeing are why there's so much attention and so much interest in this and why it's kind of a dynamic situation. Yeah. Cato Kalin, thank you for taking the time to come on. Really appreciate it.
I may run for office one time, Jess. I don't know for sure, but if there's a Speaker of the Guest House, I'm thinking about it.
Okay, well, you're going to announce it on this show. You're going to announce it on the show. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. We'll be back with our special election coverage.